Hello YouTube and welcome to the channel. Now then, today's video, it's going to be a little bit convoluted, but bear with it. Now if you're at all familiar with the channel, you might recognise this, the Zroad Hunter that I reviewed a few weeks back. Really like the truck. Unfortunately, right at the end of the video I broke the tooth off the reduction gear, and ever since then I've been trying to locate parts for it. Now jokingly in the video I said this: I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and track down the spare part. Well, I can't find any spare parts for these at the moment because they're so new. Mr. Tomley tested one, the Infraction style one. He didn't like his, so I wonder if he'll send me his reduction gear. And although it was a jokey comment in the video, at the time I was really struggling to find spares for this, and also I was labouring under the misapprehension that the truggy version, the Infraction looking version and the buggy version all shared the same chassis and transmission. So I thought, you know what, that comment, although it's a bit silly, it's not a bad idea. So I emailed Mr. Tomley. I'm not going to give his real name out on YouTube. I emailed Mr. Tomley and said, I watched your video. Is there any chance, I know you don't like it, is there any chance you can send me this transmission part? I'll be eternally grateful because I can't find any spares for this. Anyway, literally a few hours later, emailed me back or messaged me back and said, yeah, sure, send me your address. I will send you the parts. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, this arrived in the post. He sent me the whole RC, basically with a note saying he's not going to use it. This channel will probably make better use of it. So, well, this is the actual RC out of his video, by the way. Like I say, he sent me the whole thing. Now then, as I mentioned before, unfortunately, I was labouring under the misapprehension that there was a great deal of commonality in the transmission and the chassis. Well, it turns out there is, but only between the buggy and the Infraction looking one. The truggy one, the bits that I'm after, is completely bloody different. So basically, Mr. Tomley sent me an RC that he thought that I was going to be able to use to repair my Zroad, but in fact I can't because it's completely different. So I'm thinking, well, I've got to use it for something. What can we do with it? So I did actually I have watched his video, his review video on this, and there were two things he really didn't like and it really put him off from recommending this. One was the suspension, and it is horrible, I must admit. And the second thing was this thing doesn't do its claimed top speed. So I had an idea. Why don't we take this gift horse and why don't we try and create the RC that Mr. Tomley would recommend? So I went out there and I've managed to get hold of hopefully some oil shocks that are roughly the same size, because you can't get the shocks for these, or not that I'm aware of. They're a funny size, so I got the nearest size oil shocks that I could. Banggood ages ago sent me this brushless kit for review, so I thought, you know what, let's fit some oil shocks to it. Let's fit that Surpass Hobby kit to it, brushless kit to it, and see if we can't turn this into a decent RC. So hopefully by the end of the video we'll end up with an RC that Mr. Tomley would have recommended. Now before we continue with this video, there's a couple of big thank yous I want to say. The first of which is obviously to Mr. Tomley for sending me this entire truck. The second of which is to the gentleman at Beyond RC who has very kindly put me in touch with the marketing department of Bonsai RC, who can hopefully finally send me some spares for the other Zroad that I've got. If you've been living under a rock for your entire life and you've never heard of the two channels, Tomley RC and Beyond RC, I will put links in the description below. Anyway, let's get on with the build. I've gone ahead and fitted two of the oil shocks to the back of the truck, and immediately we can see what a difference even fitting a cheap pair of oil shocks makes. This is the original. We can see we get that nice non-damped bounce. If we do the same with the rear, got some damping. So 20 minutes and a few quid later, we've got ourselves a fully damped chassis. Now I think Mr. Tomley said this thing was about 120 quid in the UK, and for that amount of money really you should be getting oil shocks on a chassis. The units it comes with are, to be honest, horrible. They're far too hard. I have noticed that underneath the wishbones are actually prevented from a certain amount of their movement by these little plastic tangs, but they've sort of worn away and we've actually got a bit more suspension travel, so that should be nice. Now then, this thing, if you watch Mr. Tomley's video, this thing is supposed to do 48 kilometers an hour, which is 29 miles an hour. I believe he got 19, 20 miles an hour out of it with the stock setup. So hopefully, when we shove this Surpass Hobby kit on it, we should get a little bit closer to this thing's actual claimed top speed. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to start ripping the original electronics out, and we're going to put our own motor and electronics in. One thing you do notice when you start taking these Zroads apart is they are reasonably well screwed together. I mean, everything's held together with Allen bolts, Allen headed bolts, which you don't tend to find on RC this price point. But I will say this, if you go and watch Mr. Tomley's review video of this, he actually uses it on a dirt surface, and to be honest, quite a lot of that dirt and dust has actually ended up in the reduction gearbox housing. I mean, absolutely full, look. So there can't be a very good seal to stop the ingress of dirt in this thing, which could impact, obviously if you bought one, it could impact the reliability further on down the road. So I'm going to try and get as much of this removed as I can. We've got to get the motor out, of course, and we'll just continue taking the thing apart basically. Right, that's the electronics out of it. Now, one annoying thing is, and I wish manufacturers wouldn't do that, solder the ESC directly onto the motor. I mean, we're not going to use the motor, but that does annoy me, that does. Now, I'll tell you what is impressive. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but all the different holes on this motor mount represent a load of different pinions this thing can run. So we've got from 24 teeth right the way down to 13, which I think is pretty impressive really. Anyway, we're going to remove this motor mount, we're going to remove the pinion, hopefully that'll come off nice and easy, and then we're sort of rocking and rolling. You do have to take a lot of stuff out of this thing in order to get to the motor mount, but it's a bit of a faff, but ultimately hopefully it'll be worth it. Right then, that's the motor installed. Nice, easy, straightforward installation, no dramas, everything come off the old motor nice and easy. I like the pinion, didn't even have to use any heat. They obviously don't use WL Toys glue, which is a bonus. In the kit, so this motor is a 3300 kV job, and it's coupled with a 45 amp ESC, not the highest ampage ESC in the world, but you never know, might just get us to 29 miles an hour. Funnily enough, or strangely enough, the footprint of this Surpass Hobby ESC is identical to the old receiver ESC, so it fits in the same hole. It's so snug, it's unbelievable. It's like it was made for it. So that's a nice easy job. It's a little bit close to the drive shaft, but should be far enough away that it doesn't cause us any problems. I've also located a Surpass Hobby servo, 3-wire servo, and we're going to use our good old Fly Sky radio gear to connect this lot up. So I'm going to keep going, and hopefully in a bit it'll be finished. Right, that's all the electronics in, and apart from tidying a few of the wires up, it's pretty much done. We've got a little compartment here at the front, which I presume is for an aftermarket receiver, which we've utilised it for. I still can't believe this ESC is the same footprint as the old one. Everything's got this. I'll tell you what, this thing's gone together like an absolute dream. Dead easy to upgrade this. We'll just check the steering. Yeah, we're on. I think that Surpass Hobby steering servo is a little bit quicker than the original as well. I tell you what, these fans on these ESCs are noisy, aren't they? But yeah, apart from tidying the wires up, it's pretty much done, and we can probably go out and test it. Right, we're outside, speedo is 0. Let's try a few top speed runs while we've got some fresh batteries, see if we can get anywhere near the manufacturer's 29 miles an hour. Right, first couple of runs, 24.2 miles an hour, that's just on 2S. I mean, this is a very mild brushless setup. I'll reset it, see if we can't get 25. I think 24 miles an hour on 2S is probably our limit. I have bought the 3S battery with me. I I'm not sure if I can shoehorn it in, but let's give it a go. Just about fits in, so let's try this thing on 3S. Right, on 3S this thing will do 33.6 miles an hour. I knew we'd beat the 29 miles an hour that the manufacturer claimed. That was inevitable. Good news is the motor on 3S stays nice and cool, as does the ESC. Mind you, I'm not surprised with that bloody fan on it. What I'll do now is give it a couple more runs, see if we can top that, and then we'll just have a general mess around with it, see if the handling's any better. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh. Oh shit. I broke the top off one of the bloody shock absorbers. Right then, back inside, what did we think of the upgrades to our Comet Racer here? Now before I answer that question, just to let you know that the rear shock absorber hadn't broken, it's just that eyelet had pulled out of the aluminium cap, that was all. Literally just pushed it back in, and seems good as new, to be honest. Right then, seeing as how we've mentioned the suspension, we may as well start there. Did our little blue oil-filled dampers make any difference to this RC? Having watched Mr. Tomley's video, I know I haven't tried this beforehand with the originals, but I have watched Mr. Tomley's video several times, and this thing just does bounce around all over the place with the original shocks. Although there was a little bit of that in the video, it's nowhere near as prevalent, I don't feel. So, I mean, even with these cheap little blue dampers, they just make so much difference. It's such an easy thing for manufacturers to fit, and it does make a massive difference to the handling. Now then, what did we think of our brushless kit? Well, the original stock truck did 19 miles an hour on its original brushed motor. Now, to be fair to it, it was on lithium-ion batteries, which aren't the best if you're trying to get some speed out of one of these things. And I know I ran this on 2S LiPo, so there's a little bit of a difference there. It would have been probably interesting to see what it would have done on lithium ion, but I still think it would have been quicker than stock. Well, hopefully anyway. This isn't a particularly hot brushless setup. Like I say, the motor is one of those F450 jobs, 3300 kV, and we've got a 45 amp Surpass Hobby ESC there, so it's not like a majorly overly powerful setup, but even so, it gave good strong power. There's plenty of torque there, enough to spin the wheels even on 2S, and it got 24 miles an hour, which is about 38 kph on 2S. We managed to get 33.6 out of it on 3S, which is about 53 kph. So to be honest, this is what a £120 RC should have come with. Really, is a reasonable brushless motor and a reasonable brushless ESC. As for the kit itself, I've got no issues with it. It was super smooth. There's no cogging. That's a fairly large pinion gear on that as well. No cogging. There's plenty of power there. It's not overly powerful, so it's a good place to start, to be honest, because it's not going to wreck the transmission on your RC. You know what I mean? If you put something that's too powerful enough, as I'm well aware, you just start breaking things. And this is a nice, good, easy, cheapish upgrade to perform. Like I say, I've got no qualms with this little brushless setup. It's really rather good. So the question is, have we ended up with an RC that, if Mr. Tomley were to test it now, would he think it was worth the 120 quid asking price? Now, I know I'm a bit biased, but I'm going to say yes, because if I'd have got this RC through the post to review, and the RRP was about 120 quid, and I'd tested it. I would have thought that this is worth it. The only thing it's slightly down on still is the top speed, 24 miles an hour, as opposed to the 29 miles an hour quoted by the manufacturer. But to be honest, with some of these manufacturers, they just pull these figures out of thin air. They're just meaningless. The stock car will never ever achieve that. I mean, how they ever thought that the stock car would reach 29 miles an hour on a lithium ion brushed motor, I have absolutely no idea. It's just poppycock. But anyway, I think we've achieved that. I think this is, if Mr. Tomley had got this RC for 120 quid RRP, I think he would have recommended it. As ever on the video, all the bits and pieces I've used, I shall put some links in the description to where you can get them from. Big thank you once again to Banggood for supplying this Pass Hobby kit for review. Obviously a massive thank you to Mr. Tomley for supplying the whole truck. And a big thank you to Beyond RC for obviously helping me, hopefully, fingers crossed, to get in some spares for my other Zroad. And if you found this video of some use and interest, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you're feeling that way inclined, hit that subscribe button for more similar future content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you again very, very soon.